I used to believe family was everything. That's what my mother whispered to me every night before bed, her calloused hands smoothing my hair. Natasha, we Petrovs stick together. Always. I believed her, with the unquestioning faith only a child can have. I believed her so much that at 22, when my acceptance letter to Columbia's graduate program arrived, I folded it neatly and tucked it away in a drawer that would remain closed for years. The family bakery needed me. Our little Petrov's Delights had been struggling since Dad's heart attack, and Mom couldn't manage alone. My brother Anton had already escaped to California, building software instead of kneading dough. My younger sister Mila was still in high school, too young to shoulder the burden. So, I stayed. I told myself it would be temporary, just a year, maybe 2. Long enough to stabilize the business, train new staff, update our accounting system that still relied on paper ledgers and my father's fading memory. Just until we're back on our feet, Mom promised, squeezing my hands with gratitude that first night after I'd made my decision. Dad didn't say much, just nodded from his armchair. The medical bills piled high on the coffee table beside him. 1 year turned into 5. Then 8. I became the backbone of Petrov's Delights. I modernized our menu, created an Instagram account that attracted food bloggers from 3 states over, expanded our wedding cake business. I worked 14-hour days, 6 days a week. I lived in the small apartment above the shop while my friends moved away, got married, built careers with 401ks, and paid vacation. On my rare day off, I'd sometimes take the train into the city, walk past Columbia's campus, and wonder about the life I might have had. The architectural preservation degree, the travel fellowship I'd dreamed about since I was 15. But then I'd think of Mom's smile when we had our first profitable quarter after Dad's illness, and I'd tell myself it was worth it. I was 30 when everything changed. It was a Tuesday in April, unusually warm for early spring. I was experimenting with a new cherry almond pastry recipe when Anton called. "Tash, have you talked to Mom and Dad lately?" His voice had that careful quality, the one he used when he didn't want to deliver bad news. "Yesterday," I said, phone wedged between my ear and shoulder as I measured out almond extract. "Why?" "They didn't mention anything about the bakery?" My hand stilled. "What about it?" The silence stretched so long I thought we'd lost connection. "They sold it, Tash. To the Markovic Group. The deal closes next month." The measuring spoon clattered to the floor. Almond extract pooled like a small, fragrant lake on the countertop. "That's not possible. I would know if they were selling." But even as I said it, small details began arranging themselves in my mind. Dad's hushed phone calls, the suited men who'd stopped by just to say hello last month. Mom asking for all our recipe books to make copies. "I'm so sorry," Anton continued. "Mila just told me. She thought you knew." I don't remember ending the call. I do remember locking the bakery door, flipping the sign to closed, and climbing the stairs to my apartment. I sat on my bed, staring at my hands, rough and marked with small burns from years of ovens and hot pans. Hands that had built something, only to have it sold from underneath me. When I finally went downstairs the next morning, Mom was waiting. She looked smaller somehow, gray hair pulled back in her usual tight bun, eyes avoiding mine. "It's for the best, Natasha," she said before I could speak. "Your father's health is worse. We need to retire." The Markovich offer was generous. "You didn't tell me." My voice sounded foreign to my own ears. "I'm the one who runs this place. I'm the one who saved it." "We knew you'd be upset," she said, arranging pastries in the display case as if it were any normal day. "You've given so much already. Too much. We didn't want you trying to talk us out of it." "What about me? What am I supposed to do?" She brightened then, reaching for my hand. "That's the wonderful part. The Markovics want to keep you as manager. You'll have a real salary, benefits, even paid vacation. No more 60-hour weeks." I pulled my hand away. "You don't understand. This isn't about a job. This was my life, my choice." Her smile faltered. "No, Natasha, it was our bakery. You were helping us, remember? And now we're helping you get your life back." I turned away before she could see the tears. 8 years of my life dismissed as a favor. 8 years of dreams deferred, reduced to helping out. The next few weeks passed in a blur of lawyers and paperwork. I signed whatever they put in front of me, numb and disbelieving. The Markovich representative, a sleek woman named Elena, kept talking about the exciting future of Petrov's Delights, about expansion plans and branded merchandise. I nodded like a puppet while something inside me withered. Dad avoided me entirely. Mila called daily from her college apartment, alternating between apologies and attempts at silver linings. Anton offered me a guest room in his San Francisco condo until you figure things out. The final night before the ownership transfer, I stayed late after closing. I walked through the bakery, touching everything: the ancient mixer that groaned on cold mornings, the marble counter where I'd rolled thousands of pastries, the wall where we marked children's heights with flour-dusted hands. In the office, I opened the drawer where I kept my Columbia acceptance letter, now yellowed and creased. The door chimed. We always forgot to lock the back entrance. I emerged to find my father standing awkwardly by the register. Natasha. He looked older than his 63 years. Shoulders stooped, face lined with the aftermath of illness and hard work. Your mother said I should talk to you. Now? After everything's decided? He sighed, lowering himself onto a bistro chair. I know you're angry. You have every right to be. I'm not angry, I said, though we both knew it was a lie. I'm erased. Like everything I did here didn't matter. That's not true. His voice sharpened with unexpected force. Everything you did mattered. That's why we had something valuable enough to sell. I stared at him, speechless. You think we don't know what you gave up? He continued. You think we don't see how you look at your friends' lives, their careers? You were suffocating here, Natasha, dying a little every day. That was my choice, I whispered. Number. It was our failure. He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket, sliding it across the table. We should never have let you sacrifice your future for our past. I didn't open the envelope. What is this? Your share of the sale. Not all of it. We need some for retirement, but enough. I don't want money. I wanted. My voice broke. What had I wanted? Security? Purpose? The knowledge that I was essential, irreplaceable? I know, he said softly. But maybe now you can want something for yourself. After he left, I finally opened the envelope. The check inside had more zeros than I'd ever seen. Enough to go back to school, enough to travel, enough to start something new. I should have felt liberated. Instead, I felt hollowed out, like someone had scooped away my insides and left nothing but an empty shell. I locked up for the last time and walked home through streets I'd known all my life, wondering who I was if not the girl who saved the family bakery. The next morning, I didn't go to the official handover ceremony. I couldn't bear to watch Elena Markovich accept the keys to my kingdom. Instead, I sat in a coffee shop 3 blocks away, laptop open, staring at Columbia's website. They still had a preservation program. I could still apply. My phone buzzed with messages I didn't answer. Mom, Mila, even Anton, though it was the middle of the night in California. Finally, as noon approached, a new message appeared from an unknown number. It's Elena Markovich. We missed you this morning. Can we meet? I'm at the bakery. I almost ignored it. But something, curiosity, maybe, or just the habit of responsibility, made me walk those 3 blocks back to Petrov's. Elena was waiting in what had been my office, surrounded by moving boxes. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe mid-30s, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Thank you for coming, she said, gesturing to a chair. I wanted to talk to you privately, not in front of your parents. I sat stiffly, arms crossed. About? About why we bought this place. She leaned forward. Do you know what attracted us to Petrov's? Location. Established customer base. Good reviews. Elena shook her head. Your innovation, your community building. The way you've transformed a traditional bakery into something modern while respecting its heritage. I blinked, off balance. We've been watching you for almost 2 years, she continued. Since you won that small business award, the truth is, we don't just want to keep you as manager, we want you as a partner in our expansion plans. She slid a folder across the desk. This is our offer. 5 new locations across the Northeast. Creative control. A development team to support you. And equity, not just salary. I didn't touch the folder. Why didn't you approach me directly? Elena had the grace to look uncomfortable. Your father insisted on handling the negotiations himself. He was protective. But now that it's done, we want to deal with you directly. I thought of all those hushed phone calls, the suited visitors. Had Dad been negotiating for me all along, in his own misguided way? I need time to think, I said. Of course, but Natasha? Her eyes met mine. We didn't buy a bakery. We invested in a vision. Your vision. I wandered through the city for hours afterward, the folder tucked into my bag, my mind racing. By sunset, I found myself at the river, watching light play on the water. A text from Mom lit up my phone. Are you coming for dinner? We have news. News. As if there could be more surprises. They were all waiting when I arrived. Mom, Dad, Mila, who must have driven in from college, and even Anton on a video call propped against a water glass. The dining room table was set with the good china we used only for holidays. There she is, Dad said, rising to pull out my chair. Our brilliant daughter. I felt a flicker of anger at his sudden warmth. What's this about? Mom bustled in from the kitchen with a cacanut, one of ours, I noted with petty satisfaction. We wanted to celebrate properly. Celebrate what? Selling my future out from under me? The room went quiet. Mila shifted uncomfortably. On the screen, Anton looked away. Did you meet with Elena today? Dad asked finally. Yes. I pulled the folder from my bag, tossing it on the table. Quite the offer. Were you planning to tell me about this part, or was that going to be a surprise too? We couldn't tell you, Mom said quietly. It was part of the agreement. The Markovics wanted to approach you themselves. So you let me believe you just discarded me for weeks. Dad leaned forward, his eyes unexpectedly bright. We gave you what you'd never give yourself, Natasha. A choice. I stared at him. What? If we'd told you about the Markovic offer from the beginning, what would you have done? Stayed out of obligation, convinced yourself it was what you wanted. He tapped the folder. Now you can choose with clear eyes. Stay and build something bigger. Or take your share and walk away. Start fresh. We want you to be happy, Mom added, reaching for my hand. That's all we've ever wanted. I looked around the table at their expectant faces. They genuinely thought they'd done me a favor, freeing me through deception. And maybe, in their own twisted way, they had. I haven't decided yet, I said finally. I need time. That night, I lay awake in my childhood bedroom, staring at the ceiling. The anger that had fueled me for weeks was ebbing, leaving behind a strange, tentative lightness. For the first time in almost a decade, tomorrow wasn't predetermined. No pre-dawn alarm for baking prep. No inventory to check. No staff schedules to juggle. Just possibility, spreading before me like an unmapped country. In the morning, I pulled out my Columbia letter, read it one last time, and put it away. Then I opened my laptop and began to research architectural preservation programs across the country, and in Europe, and Australia. When Elena called the next day, I was ready. I've thought about your offer, I told her, and I have some conditions. 6 months later, I stood in the doorway of Petrov's Delight's second location, a restored Victorian in Providence, watching the first customers flow in. My parents had flown in for the opening, Mom crying at the sight of her family name above a new door, Dad pretending he wasn't just as emotional. Is it like you imagined? Mila asked, appearing at my elbow with 2 coffee cups. I thought about the girl who'd deferred her dreams for family, who'd built something beautiful but felt trapped by her own creation, who'd mistaken sacrifice for love, obligation for purpose. No, I said, accepting the coffee with a smile. It's completely different. The next day, after the celebrations had ended and my family had returned home, I sat alone in my new office. On the wall hung 2 framed items side by side, me original Columbia acceptance letter, and a map marked with the locations of future Petrov's bakeries. Below them, my suitcase stood packed for a flight to Barcelona, where I'd spend 2 weeks studying historic restoration techniques before returning to oversee our 3rd location. My phone pinged with a text from Elena. Paris location still viable. Should we move forward? I smiled as I typed my response. Yes, but on my timeline. This time I was writing my own story. And it was turning out to be far richer, far more complex than the one I'd abandoned 8 years ago. Sometimes sacrifice isn't the end of a dream, but a detour to a better one. Sometimes the hardest choice isn't between staying or going, but in forgiving those who pushed you when you couldn't move yourself. And sometimes, just sometimes, family knows you better than you know yourself, even when their methods leave something to be desired. I picked up my pen and began sketching ideas for the Paris location, humming under my breath. Outside, the October sun painted the world in amber light, and for the first time in years, I felt perfectly, wonderfully free.